Um, Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel Eagling. I am the Vice President of the Ireland Chapter of Project Management. We welcome everyone for this sort of inaugural sort of kickoff for the construction community of practice. We have an interesting panel discussion coming up, and we're going to kick it off with Ricardo, who will run us through some of the new designations and studies that exist as part of the global PMI remit. So I'll do a quick introduction of our panelists, and then we might go from there, and I'll hand over to yourself there, Ricardo. So we have Ricardo McClom, Senior Strategic Manager, a Marketing and Partnerships Expert with over 22 years of international experience in financial services, development projects, and non-for-profit sector. He is currently Strategy Manager of Construction for PMI Global. So welcome, Ricardo. We have Liam Diskin, is a Chartered Engineer and Director at KSM Project Management, who are also our sponsors of today's event, with an extensive experience leading major projects across Ireland and the UK in the residential, commercial, retail, and logistics sectors. We have Kieran McCann, is a chartered engineer also with a structural engineering background. He spent the first 5 years working in Toronto with PCL, Canada's largest general contractor. After returning home, he joined PJ Haggerty's, now operating as a contracts manager out of the Cork office. His focus is largely in pharmaceutical sector. He's obtained his PMP certification in 2018 and recently took up undergoing the PMI-CP also. Brendan is a chartered engineer also, and project management professional with more than 10 years experience delivering infrastructure projects. He manages and advises on strategic infrastructure initiatives critical to Ireland's energy transition as a senior manager at EY. And then we have John Boylan, a qualified carpenter, joiner by trade. He went on to do an honours degree in construction management and engineering at the University of Westminster, London. He's also a fellow at the Chartered Institute of Building and is the regional director of Walls Construction. He is responsible for all the projects in the Munster area, but also have responsibility for a number of projects up in the Dublin region. His main sector of focus is high-tech projects in healthcare, life science, pharmaceutical industry, as well as overseeing large-scale residential projects as well. He started out in Tralee, where he served his time as a carpenter joiner, moved to London in 1984 and worked his way up to site agent, to PM, to CM, and to regional director. And he returned back to Ireland in 2001, where he commenced his tenure with Walls Construction, where he currently is. So I welcome everyone. I think it's going to be an interesting conversation, and I will hand it over to yourself, Ricardo, for the next little bit.
Wonderful. If you can go to the next slide. So thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you about PMI-CP, our latest. Well, not the way. PMI has been growing so fast. I can't say this is the latest certification any longer, but one of the newest in our portfolio, specifically targeted to the construction industry. Next slide. So why is this important? McKinsey thinks that by 2035, governments have committed, or we will need about $70 trillion US dollars in infrastructure works in order to fill the current need. Construction also represents about 13% of global GDP, and therefore making it one of the most important or the largest industry in the world. But at the same time, we have a situation where there's a tremendous skills labor shortage in the sector. And a lot of the sector is mature, and therefore we'll see tremendous retirement over the next little while. So we're really faced with a confluence of issues or opportunity, I would say, where the sector is, the demand is great, and we have a tremendous labor shortage and needing to upskill and reskill people in order to take advantage of this wave of infrastructure that's needed. So I like to say that now is the absolute best time to be in the sector because of the opportunities that are there. Next slide. So our research shows that this sector, although the opportunity is great, the problems or the issues are also great and require attention. 72% of respondents in one of our latest surveys indicated that their projects are delayed often or always. 73% says the projects are over budget, and about 70% says they're experiencing scope creep always or often. Also, it indicated that about $127 million of every $1 billion is wasted on construction projects. So you will agree with me that there is an urgent need for something to be done in the sector. Next slide. Next slide. So PMI partnered with some of the big names in the industry just to understand what are some of the pain points that are being experienced in the industry and come up with a solution. So you will recognize some of these names here, but I will point out CII, the Construction Industry Institute, and the Lean Construction Institute are two of our partners in the program, where their proprietary material is also part of the delivery of the course. So we like to say that the PMI-CP was developed by the industry for the industry. So it's really a tremendous collaboration with the industry to be able to come up with this certification. Next slide. So the pain points that were identified, you will see the modules sort of respond to each of these pain points. So 7 critical pain points were identified, and the PMI-CP contains 7 modules. So essentially, we were responding to each of the major points that were identified. So communication, and this is, I guess the holy grail of any project. If this is solved, then a lot of the issues of the project is solved. Poor technology and innovation adoption, poor procurement processes, poor interface management, changes in requirements or scope creep, lack of standardized performance measurements, and poor design and execution. Next slide. So the PMI-CP essentially looks at how do we come up with a competitive advantage and turn around some of the issues that are being experienced on construction projects. So trying to get back on budget, on time, within scope, deadline-driven, resource-smart, and minimizing mistakes as much as possible. The next slide. Next slide. So the program is divided into 2 parts. You have the PMI-CP containing 4 foundational modules, project communication, interface management, scope and change order management, and contract and risk management. So those are the 4 foundational modules required for the PMI-CP, along with some other requirements, of course. And then we have the PMI-SCP containing the advanced courses. The next slide. So I covered this. Performance and materials management, go back. Technology and innovation and execution planning are the advanced courses that are required along with the PMI-CP. Will get you a PMI-SCP or Senior Construction Professional designation. The next slide. So what is the requirements or prerequisites to be able to qualify for the PMI-CP? Um, 36 months or 3 years leading construction projects, and the completion of the 4 foundational modules that I identified earlier. The exam is about 120 questions over 230 minutes and is delivered either in person through our authorized training providers or online or self-based. So the e-learning modules, you can have those on PMI.org, or you can go through one of our many authorized training providers across the market. Next slide. We also partnered with Oracle to produce the digital construction practitioner course, essentially looking at digital tools to adopt in your construction projects to make them, more technology focused. Next slide. And our latest course here that is free for members and very minimal cost for non-members is AI in infrastructure and construction projects, essentially looking at how projects are using and companies are using artificial intelligence to improve processes and execution of projects, construction projects in particular. And we have some examples from Burns and Mac, Ontario Power, and contributions from other academic sources as well. Next slide. So the case for PMI-CP, we have so far about 25,000 individual courses have been consumed. And we have tremendous adoption taking place. Some of those I can highlight here. In particular, the one that I like to point to is the South Africa Regulatory Authority, SACP CMP, for the construction industry. They went out into the marketplace independent of PMI and did an analysis of everything that was available in the market, and they settled on the PMI-CP as the standard for the construction industry in South Africa, and they're making it mandatory that any project manager in construction sector must have the PMI-CP. That for us is, fantastic. But we have adoption from Saudi Arabia. They've listed the PMI-CP as one of the strategic certifications in fulfillment of their 2030 goals, and therefore will refund any citizen that takes the PMI-CP a full refund they will get from the government of Saudi Arabia. The Ministry of Works of Bahrain, we have the Major Transport Authority of Victoria in Australia that is actually adopted and using PMI-CP and has rolled it out to their staff. The government of Zambia and the Engineering Institute there, who is the regulatory authority in the country, they have adopted the PMI-CP for the sector in Zambia. And we're talking to many other regulatory authorities around the world on adoption of the PMI-CP for the sector. Next slide. That's it. I think I was in my allotted time. I'll have the opportunity to answer any questions you may have later.
Thanks, Ricardo. I really appreciate that. And yeah, just on that, if anyone does have any questions, if they wouldn't mind just popping them in the chat, we can ask the panelists as well as Ricardo on his presentation. So thank you very much for running through that, Ricardo. I think that was very useful. We just have a short video here that we're just going to quickly run through for a couple of minutes. This is of an individual who's actually undertaking the PMI-CP currently and just talks to us about it.
Welcome to our new professional development series called Certified for Success, where we sit down with one of our PMI members and we explore why they decided to undertake PMI certification and the value as they see it to their personal career journey. My name is Fergal Kelly and I'm the Director of Professional Development for the Ireland chapter. I'm delighted to be joined here today by James Doggart, who is undertaking the PMI Construction Professional Certification. Welcome, James, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Fergal. Hi, all those behind the camera. I'm James Doggart. As Fergal said, currently undertaking the PMI Construction Practitioner qualification. Last year, I was lucky enough to win one of the PMI Under 35 Changemaker Awards, which has really set me on a path which I've really enjoyed with the PMI and being a more active member. So I'm great to be involved and have the opportunity to speak here.
So what attracted you to working in project management in construction? Was it by design or was it something that evolved for you?
I think for many people in the construction industry, becoming a project manager is the goal or the dream. I worked for maybe 5 or 6 years as a site manager, so on the ground on construction sites, trying to work my way up and get that experience so I could become a well-rounded project manager.
And tell me, in what ways do you feel that the PMI Construction Professional Certification will help you to face challenges?
The PMI has the ability and the reach that it draws information, it draws knowledge, it draws lessons learned from all across the world. So being able to do a certification that looks at all of that lessons that have been pulled together from across the world, I think it's going to help push me hopefully forward and become a better project manager and really take the best practices from across the world and try and implement them here.
How have you found that undergoing certification has changed the way in which you approach your work, or maybe the way in which you lead teams?
I think with not just the PMI-CP qualification, but all PMI certification, it allows you to step back, and what I try and do is maybe instead of build into things straight away, that I take a pause. I think about what I've learned, what's been advised, and really think about the best next steps. I think it's great to be able to look back at the resources and be able to say, okay, this is how I maybe should do it, and this is how I do it, and maybe find a middle ground. And I also think it's great to try and bring people along on that journey as well and explain to them why maybe I'm doing something different.
What do you know now that you wish that you knew before you started certification?
What I wish I knew is, I wish I knew about it sooner. I think if I'd known about it sooner, I would have started it sooner. I think the knowledge base that it's given me has, I've seen a tangible improvement in what I've been able to do. So I think it's great.
So James, you were one of our under 35 change makers last year. What advice would you give to other younger members of PMI?
So I think it's really important that you go out of your comfort zone, you maybe come to events that you wouldn't normally go to, and I think it's about asking questions, and slowly you'll pick it up and you'll be able to be the one that can answer the questions for the next people coming after you.
And so finally, I'm going to end up on an interesting question. If you had to sum up your certification journey in a hashtag, what would that be?
One thing that I think that the certification kind of embodies, that I like to think, is we all need to constantly grow and build to become a better project manager. So my hashtag would be building better.
Building better. And I love that reference back to the construction industry in that. Listen, James, thank you very much for joining us here today. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, and we look forward to having our next candidate together in a month's time for the next episode.
Great. Look, thank you very much for running through that there, Evan, with the video. We will jump into our fun panel discussion here with everyone. As I say, if anyone has any additional questions for our panelists, please do let us know, and we can go from there. Now, I will like to bring this first one to yourself there, John. Can you share a pivotal moment or decision throughout your career that shaped your career path in construction?
Yeah, I suppose I looked at this question and I thought back through my career as to what was a pivotal moment, and it's actually outside of my career. When I was in 5th year doing honours maths in Tralee in the in the late 70s, early 80s. I remember our maths teacher saying to me, John, you can't learn maths, you have to understand maths. And I just picked up on the word understanding and did my leaving cert, and I had a choice. I could go to UCC and possibly do engineering, or did I want to learn construction, or did I want to understand construction? And for me, if I understood construction, I could learn it a lot easier and a lot quicker. So I always was creative and really enjoyed using my hands. And I said that I would like to do an apprenticeship in carpentry and joinery. And I had a choice. I could have done electrical, I could have done carpentry and joinery, I could have done mechanical services. I had opportunities to do all of those. But I said to myself that, okay, who's the first person on a construction site? Well, it's actually the carpenter. You see, it's the person who comes in, sets up the hoarding, sets up the site compound. And who's the last person off the site? It's actually the carpenter again, because he takes the hoarding down and he locks the front door and he makes sure everything is secure on the way out. So I have to say that serving my time as a carpenter, I always look back at it, really enjoy craftsmanship and quality. And whether that's in carpentry or any other trade for that matter, I really do appreciate quality craftsmanship, because it brings our industry to the fore, you know, whether it's brickwork, whether it's facades, whether it's interiors, joinery finishes, even down to, you know, good quality carpet laying, you know, in a building. Like it's what people see. They don't see the engineering behind it. They don't see the structures behind it. They generally see the finished product, and they don't see all the hardship that has to go in to create that product. And I have to say that, you know, times were tough in Ireland in the late 70s, very early 80s, and I'm showing my age now. But you know, I left Ireland in 1984 when things were pretty grim here, and I went to London, and I always wanted to do engineering or engineering management in college. So I went to London at the start of a little boom that was starting there, and I was fortuitous enough that I could earn good money in London, working very hard for 3 or 4 years. And then when I earned sufficient money, I got an opportunity through a company to go to college. And I have to say that the 4 years apprenticeship, 2 years of construction studies for my leaving cert, and 4 years of on-site experience stood me, you know, so well in college that I wouldn't say that I didn't learn much in college. Of course I did, but I actually understood what our lecturers were teaching us, that I had an understanding of what they were trying to deliver in our courses. And I suppose the area of education that I probably understood most when I went to university was academic reasoning and academic understanding. And I have to say that it has stood to me in my career and my career progression, you know, throughout the entire career I've worked.
That's very good, John. And it's interesting you mentioned the quality piece. I think you know, for most people, it's understanding that you know, the construction sector in particular is one that is still done by people with two hands at the end of the day, and it's a touch and feel industry. So it's interesting you touch on that one. So. Liam, I might also bring this one to yourself. You know, can you share a pivotal moment with yourself there?
Yeah, sure, Daniel, thanks. And I suppose in my case, the defining decision for myself was when I moved from the main contractor role over to a client-side project management. So initially when I started off my career after graduating, I probably spent the first circa 6-7 years working for main contractors in Ireland and the UK, and that was very much focused on technical delivery in terms of how the buildings are built. And then circa 12 years ago, I made the decision to move across to the client side project management, which really, I suppose, forced me into learning new skills, predominantly client management and the big picture planning of how projects are envisioned at the outset, from inception, master planning, all the way through to appointment of the contractor. And that really rounded. It gave me a full 360 view, I feel, as to seeing how both projects are built and how they're planned from the get-go. And additionally, about moving from the contractor to the client side, project management, I suppose I was exposed to different sectors as well. I was able to dip into residential, commercial, logistics over a reasonably short period of time. So it that certainly gave me a much more rounded view that set off my career for the last decade or so.
Interesting, very interesting. There's a couple of points there we'll touch on some of the other questions that I might dig into a bit more. Brendan, I might bring this one to yourself as well, just to get your viewpoint on this.
Yeah, no worries. So to be honest, I can't really single out one single pivotal point in my career. It's been a steady journey for me across my career. I've always been fascinated by the construction industry from a young age, with my dad being in the industry, so continuously exposed to this and joining him on site, playing around on stockpiles and so on. That naturally led to me studying engineering, and where I practiced for a couple of years as a design engineer and systematically progressed through the rankings to project engineer, senior project engineer, just to get that holistic overview of what it entails. And what really kept me hooked is, projects have their own character, they have their own challenges, but they all in the end deliver real benefits and differences to community. But during my time as a design engineer and project engineer and so on, what really captivated me is how project management, this application of the skills, tools, and techniques can bring together multidisciplinary teams to deliver something that wasn't there before, that we all can utilize. For me, the ability to turn ideas into reality through teamwork, through this application of skills, tools, and techniques, and has led me to become a project manager, and then ultimately getting my PMP certification.
Very interesting, and it's interesting you touch on sort of that. I guess the construction sector from the perspective of there's a physical look, feel, touch aspect to the projects. It's very easy to look back for the next 50 years, look back 50 years, 100 years at all the grand infrastructure projects that have been done. And I mean, even at a very basic level, all the housing, there's a number of houses here that are older than some countries around the world. So it stands the test of time being able to see those projects. Kieran, yes. I might bring this one to yourself there as well. Any pivotal moments for yourself or decision that shaped your career path? You're just on mute there, Kieran, sorry.
Oh, apologies. Yeah, thanks for the question. I finished college back in 2010, and I suppose the construction industry in Ireland was in a very different place back then. So I suppose on my journey, I headed to Canada to search out for a job, and I suppose having come from that environment, I was kind of quite happy to take one of the first jobs that was offered, which was kind of as an estimator with PCL, who would be Canada's largest general contractor. And I suppose that been very different to what I'd done in college. It was all new, and again, being in a new country, I suppose the great exposure it gave me was there was about 1,000 people working out of the office in Toronto at the time with PCL. So you got to see firsthand the brightest minds in the industry working, and you could see very quickly then from that how inspiring that was to see. So during that process, we were tendering a large hospital project. It was a 2 million square foot building, very similar to, we say, the Children's Hospital in Dublin now at the moment. So when we won the tender for that, I knew at that point that I really wanted to get involved with the project management chain of it. I wanted to go out to site to follow the project. So I got great experience then to see that project. It was a design build, so we run it at a tender stage. We got to work through the whole design, got to see the whole building of it, got to see the commissioning of the whole hospital. And I suppose working on a project of that scale that early in your career, you really get introduced to different ways of working from different project managers in different sectors. And it was really, I suppose that's what inspired me to sort of say I wanted to stay on that side of the road rather than going back into, we'll say, consultancy or going to the design front.
Absolutely, that's very interesting there, and interesting you touch on obviously going to Canada there. I was over in Vancouver myself for about 9 years as well, so it's definitely an interesting market over there, I would say, in comparison to Ireland. A couple of key themes there, though, were by the sounds of it that Ireland seems to have a bit of a cyclical phase here with the construction sector per se, between yourself and John there, that hopefully we touch wood don't see that again, and some of these infrastructure projects get moving. I'll bring the next question to yourself there, Liam. Within the construction sector, how do we move project management from being seen as a skill set within another role to being recognized as a standalone profession with its own standards, much like architectural law? And I guess I'd like to touch on this from the perspective of, again, from globally and overseas. I guess the PM profession and skill set is probably viewed slightly different to here in Ireland. So curious your thoughts.
Yeah, it's a challenging one, Daniel, I think. I think one way is to promote it through specialised credentials and training that really signal a project manager's expertise. And picking up on Ricardo's presentation there at the outset, the PMI's construction professional accreditation is a very good example. On two fronts, really. On the first front, it gives you in-depth construction-focused curriculum, so your training is looked after, and it also provides an internationally recognised qualification, which comes with credentials. So it's really win-win when you look at that. And when you see when the industry sees project managers with credentials akin to how the architects and the engineers are licensed, it really reinforces the PM is its own discipline. I think companies need to play a big role in this. The majority of companies throughout our industry now have career paths for all their PMs within the company to help aid their learning and their growth within it. And if companies are emphasising the need for training and the credentials that we're talking about from a PM perspective, that will only grow across the industry, and slowly but surely it will become well recognised. So over time, I think with consistent standards, recognised qualifications, it will elevate the PM to a distinct profession in public eye.
Very interesting. Thanks for that, Liam. Brendan, I might bring that same question to yourself there. Any insights from yourself?
Yeah, similar to Liam's points there, but in my view, project management sits on both sides of the fence. For a long time, it's been an extension of other roles, the engineer who manages, the contractor who leads delivery. And there's still value in that on the technical grounding of it. But we're also seeing a change that project management is standing more firmly as a profession in its own right. And I believe that shift is being driven by the increasing scale, risk, and complexity of projects. Clients and investors are now demanding accountability, governance, and delivery certainty. And therefore, a dedicated project management expertise in its own right is required to deliver at scale, not just a side duty. And I believe to strengthen this shift, we need broader industry recognition, clear career paths, greater uptake of accreditation like the Construction Professional Certification, PMP, employers promoting project management as a discipline in its own right within their companies, and ultimately project managers with technical capability need to be seen as strategic leaders who brings all the technical, commercial, and stakeholder elements together to hopefully accelerate project delivery and make it more efficient in general.
Yeah, some very interesting points there, Brendan. In particular, the key takeaway for that is obviously the strategic leaders. I think that resonates with just about everyone here. And then also the extension of other roles. I think it's fair to say that you know, every single one of us has a very different background. I mean, I know we're talking about a lot of us have engineering, there's carpentry, I myself have electrician background, and it's I think it always was that extension, and I think that, as you say, that is slowly changing, and it's good to see, but I also hope that it stays with some of that strategic side and understanding the technical nuance that, you know, sort of John pointed out earlier, is that understanding of the role and what it takes. I might bring these next questions to yourself, Kieran. What are the key challenges you face on projects, and how does your PM skill set help on the day-to-day?
Yeah, no, great question. I suppose the biggest challenge, I suppose all projects are different, but managing expectations, managing stakeholders, that to me is kind of one that really sticks out to the fore. So as in the project management world, you really need to be able to, I suppose, adapt your business acumen to the next project, understand the needs of your client, see what's there. I suppose, as an example, at the moment, I have a project we're working on with a pharmaceutical client here in Cork, which is a wastewater treatment plant. We're upgrading the process, we're changing the process. You have to get into their world and understand how different phases of the project are going to work onto their live operations, and again, keeping their production facility going. And on the other hand, I have another project ongoing in Cork Airport. Very different stakeholders, very different requirements. Security is to the fore. Everything is procedural. Everything has to get planned out weeks in advance to even get your badges to get into areas of the airport to do things. So being able to understand what your stakeholders' expectations are, being able to communicate that back down into your team, a lot of that is key to it. And I suppose, again, on the other sort of technical side, we all know resources are a big constraint in the Irish market at the moment. Getting people is difficult. Getting the right people is extremely hard. So when you do get to that stage of it, then just being able to, I suppose, use your ways of working, use your planning tools, use your, we'll say, your last planner, your tact, using items like that so that you can line up your contractors, you can line up the people that you do need, and you can give them accurate timelines to when you are going to need them so that you can keep a flow on the project going. They're the kind of the two challenges that I see within the industry at the moment as the key ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head there with all projects are different. I think that resonates with just about everyone here on that front. And I think it's that key, as you say, that stakeholder management and the skill set of being able to navigate your way through that, but whilst also being able to keep on the technical side of program and so forth. John, I'd like to bring that one to yourself with your wealth of experience.
Yeah, so not too similar to Kieran. I actually put down 3 headings when I was looking at this question, and I had change management, resource management, and people management. I mean, ultimately, we are an industry of managing people. We have gone, and we're, you know, as an industry, we're as main contractors, we manage subcontractors who have special skills and different resources requirements on projects. And it's trying to manage the delivery of a project in what can be sometimes an ever-changing world. And I suppose, having, in terms of our PM skills, bringing those to the fore is always having a plan B, because things will always change. Whether we have so many interdependencies on construction projects, from, dealing with people, dealing with resources. When I mean resources, I mean material resources and plant resources and equipment resources, and dealing with ever-changing weather. It's always a challenge for us. And, if you haven't got a plan B in place and you only rely on plan A, then unfortunately your project is destined to failure. So it's always about having this second plan B in my mind anyways is a major skill to have for any project manager.
Yeah, and I'd say that's fairly evident here, as I discovered, moving from North America to Ireland. The weather is definitely a key piece when it comes to construction projects. It's definitely a key piece on things to keep an eye on there. It's interesting, there's a bit of a common theme there of the resource management, and I think that's a very timely conversation at the moment, with obviously everything that's going on in the infrastructure world, I'll call it, with obviously the Metrolink coming online. And then, I guess everyone's asking the question is, what's the next infrastructure project after that? And how do we retain that resource and that skill set here in Ireland, beyond just one project at a time. And I think, the next 10 to 15 years in the country are going to be very crucial to how that develops and progresses on that front. So.
Unfortunately, the change in our industry, where I go back when I started the industry, you were a direct employee for a main contractor, and they carried a crew of operatives and tradespersons and engineers and staff, and everybody worked for the firm. And we've moved to an industry where we're managers in construction as opposed to being contractors.
Yeah.
And one of the downsides of that is training. Seeing the demise in training from grassroots up. I mean, if you look at SOLAS and their annual reports, I mean, it has just been a continual steady decline of people wanting to come into this industry. Our industry not really having a structure or a facility to train people, because ultimately, we're managing subcontractors who, are employing people that they want trained, not necessarily to train them, but, because they want them on the ground, they need them now, and they don't have time to train them. And, the industry needs a serious wake up when it comes to this, because what we're actually doing is just creating a huge problem for the future. We can't continually rely on foreign nationals coming into this country to work here. It's just, all we're doing is creating a problem for us down the road. And because let's face it, any individual who wants to get into construction and wants to classify them as a trained and qualified person, whether they're a tradesperson, an engineer, an architect, any sector of the industry, is 10 years. Yep. It is 10 years before you can honestly put your hand in your heart and say, well, I can stand on my own here and I can deliver whatever aspects of the job I'm delivering. So, and that's from a tradesman right up. It is
absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you on that, and I think that's definitely key to the experience level, right? And you mentioned the foreign nationals, and I think the biggest wake up call that we all saw with that was obviously COVID. When everyone went home and didn't come back, it's really shocked the whole system. I saw it in North America for the first half of COVID, and then joining Cairn Homes when I came over here. It was a huge issue, resourcing, because, I would say up to 30% of the resources were foreign nationals, and they'd just gone home and they didn't come back. So it's definitely interesting on that front.
In our company, it's the norm now to go to trade shows in places like South Africa, Asia, Eastern Europe, to see if there's raw talent available that would come to Ireland. Wow. That 20 years ago, that didn't exist in this country. And we had a boom then, and we had a boom then that was equal to the boom now. It was probably a mad time, but the volume of work which had been done and built in that boom, is on par with what's happening now. But, it wasn't the norm to go to these places to get resources. But that's what we're doing now to try and fill the needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unfortunately.
Might bring this next question to yourself there, Brendan. How is digital transformation like data analytics or AI influencing the skill sets required in capital projects?
Very tricky question in the current space. So a recent study done by FIDIC and EY found that 87% of the UK construction sector stated that AI is not relevant to their work, for instance. That really reflects how reliant our industry still are on traditional practices and hands-on experience. And the end result there is basically a digital skills gap, especially amongst across a different age group. So that as a result, the workforce isn't always equipped to get the most out of new technologies. So I like to say the only constant in life is change, and the digital transformation will reshape our industry, whether we're ready for it or not. Infrastructure has progressed, and it's no longer just about laying pipes, rails, or building roads. It's becoming data-driven, generating enormous amounts of information. And if we have the capability within the sector, in the industry, to process and analyze that data properly, it can transform how we design, how we deliver and operate projects assets in the future. So that means that a future project professional doesn't just need leadership skills or technical skills, but they need digital savvy to understand the ability of data, what that means for the future, how that can shape project directions, and also need to understand how they can benefit on mundane tasks by using tools like AI and applying that in ways that really can create value for projects in the long term.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I guess curious your thoughts on that one, Liam. Obviously, you guys have got quite a diverse range of team there. I think you're over 100 staff now. And, you know, how do you find that challenge?
Yeah, digital transformation is definitely changing the skill set that we need as project managers in a big way. I suppose picking up on the 2 points of your question, being the first one being data analytics, Daniel, we need now to be very comfortable interpreting and using that data to make better decisions. All companies now at this stage are capturing a huge amount of data from costs, schedules, productivity, and are producing really good looking dashboards and able to spot trends earlier on, which is great. But ourselves as project managers, we need to be translating those insights into action. And for example, picking up on the cost and the procurement element, we're spotting cost trends in the market might impact the procurement strategy that we're advising our clients on a particular project. The big resource issue that John outlined there as well, if there's if we're relocating resources, if there's a different productivity, all that information is data that's coming on stream to us, and we need to be able to have skill set, as Brendan mentioned out earlier, to put it into place. And the second one then, in terms of AI, I think we also know it's everywhere at the minute, and I can't see AI replacing project managers, but project managers that can't use AI might end up being replaced very much down the line in the future, because it's becoming so prevalent everywhere in terms of the skill set is untold. Like it's flag hidden risks, it's able to spot clashes in schedules before they happen. And again, going back to the PM role, we need to get that and implement it in. So I think everyone's tech literacy needs to be upped, and being tech aware that would be important. Then
absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. And I think, you know, your point on the data analytics probably ties back to what John was mentioning around sort of the people management as well. You know, the more information we get up front, the earlier we can start to make decisions and steer the course of a project from early on, which is always the key piece. I'm conscious of time here, so I'll just jump into the next question. And I'll bring this one to yourself there, John. What are the top 3 skills you believe project managers in construction will need to thrive in the next 5 to 10 years?
I suppose it's kind of leading on from the previous debate we had in relation to resource management, and it's a skill that, you know, we're going to have to develop and learn and understand. You know, we're an industry now of multinational industry, and like we're dealing with so many different races and creeds and people from different ethnic backgrounds. We have to learn to understand their needs and their wants to get the best out of them, from, you know, work-life balance, understanding their requirements, and facilitating their requirements on projects. That's around the human resource side of it. As Liam and Brenda mentioned in the last question, IT skills, particularly around BIM management and the development of AI in BIM. Now, I kind of see it has a way to go yet. You know, one thing you can see in the UK, when they make an announcement of delivering public projects on BIM, they deliver on it. Unfortunately, in this country, we tend to tinker around with it for a while until we're forced into a position that either by legislation or whatever, that we then have to get involved in it. But we need to embrace BIM, but we need to embrace it holistically across the whole industry. It, you know, from a contracting perspective, I see BIM, coming in a kind of a tokenism at the moment. It's not getting its full implementation, but certainly we have manned up in our organization with BIM skills. We have a BIM department. We're all operating on 3D models on projects. And, the next stage of that will be the implementation of 4D, for how 4D comes into our planning tools for project delivery. And I suppose the last point, and it's kind of and it seems to be a theme across a lot of questions, is keeping up with ever-changing technology, whether that's modular type construction, off-site construction, new innovative ideas, legislation, building control requirements, the whole range of technology that we have to embrace, in an ever-changing industry.
Yeah, no, absolutely, John. I think the three very key and prudent points at the moment for the next 5 to 10 years in particular. Liam, curious your thoughts on that one as well. What are the 3 skills that you see for the next 5 to 10 years for project managers?
Yeah, I'd agree with John very much on the continuous learning, where we all need to be going on for the next 5 to 10 years for sure. And another 2 I'd add on to that. The first one being sustainability and ESG knowledge. A lot of projects are really being based on their sustainability metrics at the minute, on carbon, energy efficiency, and social impact. So a PM that can integrate those green strategies like carbon reduction or smart material use, there's no doubt they would be standing out in the future. And the second one then would probably be back to basics that we touched on in terms of people and communication skills. We talked a lot about tech here over the last 40 minutes or so, but no matter how much technology we adopt, I think construction's largely going to still be about the people and the ability to lead, negotiate, and keep teams aligned and working towards the common goal that we're all the common goal and objective is always going to be essential. So I think a tech side, sustainability focused, and a good communicator will always go a long way.
Absolutely. And I think that sort of ties back to particularly the communication piece. I mean, at the end of the day, this industry, at the crux of it, again, will still be hands, building something, whether it be in a factory and then it's factory delivered. There's still somebody on site physically putting 2 pieces together, I'll call it. And I think the communication is critical, both from sort of the managing of the project, but then even coordination on site, as John and Kieran will attest to, no doubt that communication is key. And I think that's probably one skill set that is probably undervalued to some extent from the PM perspective. Look, I'm conscious of time, so I might bring it down to the last one here and start with yourself there, Kieran. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of career advice, what would it be?
Study accounting. No, I really enjoyed the varied nature of project management. So I suppose one of the big things I'd certainly push to people would be, in your younger years, don't feel like I did this in college, so I must follow on and do that with the next one. So get as much experience younger as you can. I suppose I've worked in various different roles across, even on the general contracting side, be it in estimating, be it in quality, be it working as a planner. All of those roles feed into when you get into your project management side of it. When you get into the contracts manager, when you're running multiple jobs, you have to be able to understand what everyone is doing and what you want them to do. So I suppose the biggest thing that way is the more experience in various items you can get while you're younger will stand to you as you progress up through your career. And I suppose in terms of helping you gain that experience, one of the ones that I suppose I would always push with the younger staff would be, don't be afraid to ask questions. There's no such thing as a bad question. I know we've all heard that, but it's really, really true. And I know certainly when I look back to my younger self, that there's times when, again, I'm one of your first couple of jobs and you're doing a design build job and you're sitting in a room and there's 10 consultants in the room and you're looking at them all and going, okay, the lads all have 15, 20 years experience. I'm only doing this 4 or 5 years. I'm not going to tell them they're wrong. And you sit there and you listen to a meeting or two, and then eventually you kind of put your hand up and you go, okay, lads, I get where you're going, but did you not read page 7? Page 7 says you're not allowed to do that. I kind of presumed you knew that and you had another reason. But until you actually back yourself to ask the questions and get people to explain it to you, and if they can't explain it to you in a way that makes sense, then they don't understand it. And as a project manager, that's very worrying if people don't understand what they're meant to be doing. So you can never ask as much questions to gain knowledge.
Absolutely. I think that's seriously underrated, in particular on that one, that, you know, don't be afraid to ask questions. I think that's a very key takeaway there. Brendan, I might bring this one to yourself as well. You know, what's your one key piece of advice for your younger self?
Yeah, I would just like to emphasize that I do resonate with Kieran, you know, ask the questions from day one. But for me, it would be really to focus on building lasting relationships with peers, subject matter experts, mentors, whoever. You know, infrastructure projects never gets delivered by one person. They are the result of a collective effort, and you know, you never know when you need to have that relationship that you can rely on for strategic expertise or to open up another door on your project. You never know when you're going to need that relation that they could potentially rely on. So building lasting relationships for me is really key.
Yeah, absolutely, Brendan. I couldn't agree more with you on that one. That is a key, as I say, a key skill set of the PM function. You know, we have to be able to manage people, but that means maintaining relationships, you know, at the end of the day. And I think if you can't maintain a relationship, I mean, I'm sure John and Liam have seen it on sites and projects, and so have yourself, Brendan and Kieran, that it's, if you have a sour relationship with just one other individual, it can really turn a whole project. Liam, I might bring this one to yourself as well. What's one key piece of advice you got there?
Yeah, probably to actively seek feedback in the early days in your career. I think it's often something that's overlooked at your early stage, but it's really essential for your own development. I think it's important to remember that your perspective isn't always full picture, and sometimes the feedback you get and you receive might be uncomfortable, but it's really what you need to sharpen your saw and help you grow into the years ahead. The focus in the early years really shouldn't be about the building that you're trying to deliver. It should be really, picking up on Brendan's point, kind of shaping yourself and trying to get the right habits into you that's going to see you over the test of time. So whether it's an experienced foreman on site, or a project director, or a site manager, or line manager, whoever your peer is there, just get their insights as to how you're doing, because I think it can only accelerate your career rather than finding out about something 8 years later.
Absolutely, Liam, absolutely. And I think it's a key mindset shift, and I've heard that actually quite recently in a number of different sectors and topics. You know, feedback, not criticism. You know, don't take it as criticism or personal. Just take it as feedback and work on it. You know, that's definitely a key piece. John, curious, what would you give your younger self?
Yeah, if I was my younger self again, I would I'd probably try to look at broaden my experience internationally within the industry, see how things are done in other countries. Okay, I worked in London for 17 years, and I worked on all high-tech industry there, including building skyscrapers that, you know, they're not here yet. I mean, we probably have College Square now. It's probably the biggest job we have, the tallest job we have in the country. But, like, you know, in comparison to London and other cities, they're in minnows in comparison to what's constructed in other cities. You know, so yeah, it's just basically give people, you know, the opportunity to broaden their horizons, broaden their career knowledge from international experience. I suppose, you know, it's so easy to travel the world these days in comparison to what it was like 30, 40 years ago. You know, it's become a much cheaper proposition than probably we've experienced in our working careers. But certainly, you know, I welcome people that like to go to Australia, go to Canada, go to the UK, you know, go to Asia, to learn how things are built there. Yeah. And having an alumni, like we have an internal alumni within our own organization for, you know, people that want a career break, they want to go away, they want to experience. We always keep in touch, because they always have a glean to come home at some stage, whether it's raise a family. I'll be honest with you, my own career, I would have never left London from a technical learning perspective. We came home because of quality of life, and to raise children and to have a family that would be, very, very difficult to do in London. So, while you are young and you want to get out there and travel, see the world, see how it's done, use your expertise out there and learn from other people.
Yeah, I mean, look, that obviously resonates quite heavily with myself there, John. Starting out in Sydney, Australia, to then Canada, to now here. It is very interesting when you start to see that it very much well rounds you with regards to understanding pros and cons for various different areas, and I think that's a key piece. Look, very conscious of time. I know we're going over here very slightly, but there's two questions in the chat. And one I'll just throw out to the board, the panel discussion here. We've got one from Shauna here who's asking, for PMs interested in construction career, do any of the panelists offer mentorship or relationships? I guess would it be okay for people to be connecting with you guys on LinkedIn and reaching out and maybe having a discussion? I know, Liam, you're always looking for more stuff, and I'm sure, John, you're always looking as well as Brendan and Kieran. So I guess hopefully that helps you there, Shauna, and look, reach out and have a discussion with any of us. There's always jobs, and if we don't have one in particular, maybe there's somebody we know who's hiring, I guess, is something to put out there. The other question, actually, probably in relation to John, on yours with resources, it's around, are there any incentives to attract PM talent with Irish ancestry to relocate and join the Ireland workforce? And I guess maybe Liam and John, whether you have any experience with that.
Yeah, also one of the challenges, particularly outside of the EU, coming into Ireland, is the visa process. It's very much constrained by legislation and how that operates. So we do programs whereby we do sponsorship for people coming into the country that want to work here as project managers. And we help them on their visa application, on their road to getting into Ireland to work here. So, we do support, and we do have programs for international employees.
Do you have any thoughts on that one, Liam, as well?
Yeah, we'd be very the same as John in terms of bringing people back from abroad. The visa is the constraint on the applicant coming back, but we'd certainly engage with them and work with them, because resources and the lack of them moreover has been a constant theme throughout this discussion. And we need people. The opportunities are out there for everyone in the construction sector, but and we need people to deliver them.
I think that's back to Kieran's point on resource, and the quality of the resource, being able to find them is tough. Look, I do appreciate everyone staying on here. So look, thank you very much, Brendan, Kieran, John, and Liam. Really appreciated that discussion. I thought it was very insightful. We are going to try and have a few more events into next year as well. Hopefully a couple of site visits. Maybe we can tap John and Liam and Kieran and Brendan to take us all out to a site visit every now and again. I think that'd be a bit of fun. But look, really appreciate it, guys. So get on LinkedIn and have a discussion with us, and we can go from there.
Okay, guys. Talk to you later.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.